Welcome to Boardwalk Potatoes. I'm Jake Smith, along with my co-host Bill Colley. Good morning, Bill. How are you?
Good morning to you. It's a wonderful day to be alive.
Yes, yes, it is. We had some rather shocking news last night, although there are many in this country that believe that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away a long time ago, but she officially passed away last night. And listen, I feel bad that she passed away, and I did not think as poorly of her when I found out what Justice Scalia thought about her. Justice Scalia absolutely loved Justice Ginsburg. And Bill, I don't know about you, but I could not understand that. But obviously, there's something that goes on inside the Supreme Court that we ordinary mortals are not privy to.
Just nine of them. Of course, the clerks are essentially judges too, but just nine of them, and I think they all feel the weight of the world with some of these decisions. And I heard it described that she and Scalia both had a love of opera. Of course, Scalia also used to go fishing with some of his other liberal colleagues, and it turned out he'd take them shooting, and Elena Kagan became very fond of both sports. So he had a way of
Now,
reaching.
wait a minute, is she from the Bronx?
She might be, but he had a way of reaching across to these people and just developing these great relationships, which the general public just doesn't appear to seem to understand exist.
No, there is that very defined line between the conservative justice and a liberal justice. And in our estimation, the conservative justices should not be having any conversations at all with the liberal justices, correct?
Yeah, like a lot of us in our personal lives. I mean, my formerly liberal friends who no longer speak to me or drop me from Facebook, they don't look at it that way. They hear something or have to think about something that they don't like, and it just becomes time for them to do close their ears off, close their eyes off, and leave it at that.
Well, they weren't really friends. If that dictated whether they were going to be a cafeteria friend, whether they were going to be your friend one day and not your friend another day, depending on how you felt or what you said, they weren't really friends. They weren't sincere. So,
yeah, they were people from college,
okay.
if you could buy them a beer, they liked you at the time, I suppose. But if you couldn't buy them a beer any longer, they had no need for you.
Well, let's talk about what's going on right now in Washington with the news that Justice Ginsburg has passed away. There is a vacancy on the Supreme Court. I know that there is going to be, well, let's put it this way. Chuck Schumer has already said it's a no-go. Judge Garland did not get an up or down vote in the Senate. The Republicans obviously are saying, not Susan Collins, because Susan Collins is in the fight of her life politically. She's probably not going to side with anyone that the president nominates. But do you think that the Republicans should move forward before the November election? Mitch McConnell's been saying all along that if there was an opening, a vacancy on the Supreme Court before November 3rd of 2020, he would move on an up or down vote. What are your thoughts, Bill?
Yes, because if you appoint someone along the lines of an Amy Coney Barrett, she'll be there for the next 30, 35 years. She's the type of justice that can help restore, I think, a great deal of American culture. And President Trump is gone either this January or in 4 Januaries,
Right.
but that justice will be there. And I think that this is the least riskiest move. Now, you don't need Collins' vote. You probably don't even need the vote of Murkowski. So that the swing vote then becomes one Republican by the name of Mitt Romney. But Mitt Romney's looking at polling data in his home state of Utah, one of his several home states, and he's looking.
And it's not looking good for him.
No, I don't know about outside of this part of the country. I mean, I'm just half an hour drive or so from certain parts of the state line.
Right.
But I don't think people realize that in Utah, he actually had a very contentious Republican Party primary. And he didn't expect that, and he did not do all that well. He won, but he did not do all that
because the President Trump supported him, came out and endorsed him. No,
that's and that he's not been very friendly to the president. But I got to think that Romney would be on board with this. And here's the other thing: you don't need to have hearings. They hold hearings at times, but you don't need them. McConnell can strictly call for a vote, and if you get 51, you confirm that justice.
Now, Amy Coney Barrett, Roman Catholic, Bill, I believe, correct?
Right, 8 kids.
Right. Can you imagine Kamala the Commie Harris, the Harris administration, so to speak, sitting there and grilling Amy Coney Barrett the way she grilled Judge Kavanaugh? Now, if Coney Barrett was confirmed, that would be two straight Roman Catholics on the Supreme Court, conservative, traditional Roman Catholics. Could the vice presidential nominee, the running mate of Joe Biden, could she damage their chances by going after Amy Coney Barrett and sabotaging any possible Catholic vote? What do you think?
I think that they would definitely harm the traditionalist or Orthodox or conservative Catholic vote. Let's be honest, though, 50% of the Roman Catholic Church is comprised of people who they back Joe Biden, they back Nancy Pelosi.
Because they're like Joe Biden.
Right.
They believe like Joe Biden. They worship like Joe Biden.
There's no hearing. All there can be are public attacks. In other words, Kamala Harris can go on Rachel Maddow's program and screech all she wants, and Rachel can screech back. But those people weren't going to be voting for President Trump anyway. As I say, skip the hearings. Just there's the nominee, vote, 51 votes, confirmed, and we go on from there. We're in a period right now. We've got the left out burning down cities. We've got to start playing some hardball as well.
Agreed. Now, there are going to be those who on Monday morning from the Socialist Democrat Party are going to come out and say, you did this to Judge Garland. This is unfair to put up any Supreme Court nominee from President Trump before the November election. Do Schumer and company have a point?
They'll make that, and they'll have a lot of people in media trying to make it as well. I think the best reply is elections have consequences.
Where have we heard that before, William? Where have we heard that before?
Yeah, I just think that's the answer you take. There's too much at stake culturally with what we've got going on in this country, and if this tips the balance for the next generation, I'm sorry, I'm not apologizing.
One further question with respect to the Supreme Court. Is there mileage for the Republican Party politically to be gained by having hearings? In other words, let the Socialist Democrats go out and go after a traditional Roman Catholic woman who's got a very good record on the bench, by the way, who has been nominated by the president for the United States Supreme Court. Are there political prizes for the Republicans to be gained by letting the Socialist Democrats do this close to the November election what they did to Judge Kavanaugh? Bill, what do you think?
Well, you'll energize the conservative Catholics, and you'll energize the evangelicals who will obviously support this candidate. You know, it's interesting. The other day, I got an email. I'm on the email list for some reason of the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CARE.
Yes, somebody did something.
CARE sent out an email the other day condemning the show Cuties. And I thought, I agree with these people today. This is a first. But it shows you that there are still a great many different clusters of people who are very conservative in their values. And I think that would shore all of those votes up, because now they know what's at stake. 6 weeks out from Election Day, they know what's at stake. As far as making the angry left angrier, again, they're already motivated just in their Trump.
I mean, how can they be any angrier than they are right now? Look at their behavior, for crying out loud, Bill.
Right.
All right. I thought we would shift gears and talk about the forest fires. As you know, Joe Biden said that it is climate change. He's got a Green New Deal because he says that these forest fires in the out west and the Pacific Northwest, that they've been caused by the damage that we've done to the environment, climate change. Our big trucks that we're driving around have caused all this. And that Green New Deal is going to put an end to all forest fires. We are going to have battery operated cars. We're not going to have any more hurricanes. But the simple fact of the matter is these forest fires are real. President Trump was lambasted for his comments on how forestry is managed in this country. That's an argument that's been going on, Bill, for a long time. There are a lot of experts in this area that said the same thing that the president has said with respect to maintaining our forests to prevent this kind of damage. The president got lambasted, obviously, in Marxist state media. Tell us what's going on in your neck of the woods right now with these fires.
I have a fire burning just a few miles from our studios. The leading edge of it is probably 7 or 8 miles from here. It has burned 97,000 acres as of 7 p.m. last night. It was only at 42,000 acres yesterday morning. It had been growing by about 8,000 acres per day, and then just simply more than doubled. There are two communities, Oakley, by the way, where Mitt Romney's dad used to live. That's threatened by the fire. Beautiful historic community. The Huntsman family came out of there too as well. There's a community called Hanson, not too terribly far from here. There's a wonderful diner I like to go to there. Hanson is threatened. It has been an amazing several days. That's why I'm so disheveled, is because I've not had a lot of downtime the last few days. Witnessing all of this, and I have been up into that area frequently on weekend drives where all of this is taking place. I can tell you right now that we've had 110 years of forest policy in this country. It goes back to something called the Big Burn back in 1910, which most of it, which was centered in North Idaho, in a place called Wallace, where I've vacationed on occasion. It's interesting to note that's where they made the movie with Pierce Brosnan about the volcano going off, I think called Dante's Peak. They had to actually stencil in the actual volcano in the background because it's not quite as mountainous there as it is here. That changed forest policy. But what they didn't address was that long before any people ever came to this part of the world, this part of the country burned. And then even after they came over the land bridge from Asia, this country burned. And then as the settlers moved westward from the East Coast, this was still burning. And they decided in 1910, well, if we just let nature take its course. So now you've got all this debris. It's like you build up this great big carpet of fuel. We had a very wet spring, unusually wet spring. It's barely rained since then, which means all that
the brush that grew started to dry out.
You can now take cheatgrass or even some leaves, and if you just do this with your fingers, it turns to powder. So all of that is fuel out there, plus whatever other dead biomass is on the carpet on the floor. It's akin to going into your home, pouring a few gallons of gasoline down on the carpet, and then deciding, you know what, I'm going to light the fireplace. That's the issue. So you can scream climate change all you want, but someone who's just had their house destroyed is more concerned about not having this happen again next year. And I talked to a geologist this past week who runs a website called Idaho on Fire, and his slogan is, I believe it's log it, graze it, or watch it burn. And he said, even if we get back to a more sensible forest management policy, he says it's still probably 10 years out before we see a change, because there's just
time
so much, right, to get out there and actually clear all of this out, the debris. I've been on Route 15 over in Montana, Interstate 15, and I was driving to Helena one day, and I remember driving up this stretch of road, and I looked to my left, and all of the acres and acres of trees along this one mountainside looked like big gray matchsticks. No, they're all dead. They're just left to stand there. Someone could come along and cut them down, but we can't have that because, well, somebody might make some money doing that, and that would be, wrong in the eyes of the left. So they're allowed to stand there. Well, you know what those dried, dead matchsticks represent if they ever get hit by some light?
Severe fire danger.
That's the issue. That's what we're dealing with. And I'll tell you what, when I can't open my doors at home to get a breeze to go through because
the smoke,
the smoke is it's incredible.
Bill, let me ask you a question. You talk to your listeners on a daily basis. The president has obviously made these comments about forest management, maintenance, as you call it. Do you think that there are people that actually do believe and do support the president's position? Because again, this has been talked about for 30 plus years that I can remember. Are people more inclined to believe that it is the heating of the environment that's causing these forest fires, or it's government intervention in preventing people from clearing their land out and keeping the fuel for these fires out of a potential fire area that they believe is the cause? What are you hearing from your listeners in Idaho?
Well, keep in mind, unlike where you live, there are very few liberals here, and because their numbers are so small, they don't speak out a whole heck of a lot. You come on the radio and you're talking, and if your neighbor hears you, you're probably going to take some grief from your neighbor.
Right.
They like to snipe under assumed names on the internet at people occasionally, but they're very few. Overwhelmingly, people who live here are conservative. Maybe not. Well, I'll put it this way: they're center right to conservative. The joke is that you probably could find maybe 14. there have been some years where the local Democrat Party hasn't been able to find a county chair. So that's what they're dealing with. Overwhelmingly, people who live here, they make their money off the land. This is the nation's leading producer of barley. Everyone thinks potatoes, but it's also the leading producer of barley. It's one of the leading producers of hops. It's one of the leading producers of sugar beets. You could log it, but the federal government owns 2/3 of the dang land. And for that reason, all of those economic opportunities. I know a lot of beautiful little communities here that used to be 100 years ago, probably thriving, but they don't thrive any longer. And all you see are I've been to some ghost towns as well. And that's because federal government stepped in. And if the federal government owned 2/3 of Delaware, what do you think the reaction would be of people there? And if the federal government said, well, now that we own this land, you can only graze it with our permission, and we can deny that at any time. You can't log it. You can't grow anything. And we may even lock some of it up so you can't come back in here and even hike through it. That's been some of the latest we've been hearing. This is not a subject here that is one that's up for debate. It's overwhelmingly in favor of getting the job done and restoring some sanity to this land policy.
Well, Bill, we are going to be hearing more and more about this in the days and weeks ahead, but clearly we've got a very busy week coming up. There'll be plenty to talk about with regard to the Supreme Court. Obviously, the election is getting closer and closer. What are we now, 44 days, I believe, until the election? So much to talk about. You and I will be uploading additional podcasts on Boardwalk Potatoes. And until next time, until the next exciting episode of Boardwalk Potatoes, I'm Jake Smith, along with my co-host, Bill Colley. Bill, we will talk soon.
Amen.